The Listener, which is focused on a peer crisis hotline worker, is stirring, frustrating, and a potentially tear-inducing film. To summarize the film, Beth has been a peer crisis hotline worker for a few years at this point and is about to take a much needed break. But before that happens, she has one more shift to do, and throughout her shift, she speaks to a cop, a military veteran, a newly employed professor, and the type of man who likely triggered Beth needing a break. So when it comes to notable performances or moments when it comes to The Listener, there's one phone call by a person named Laura who stands out. For while many of the phone calls allow you to understand what Beth is going through, both the emotional labor and frustration, and even sometimes a feeling of helplessness, Laura's call is the one that hits the hardest. She is a former sociology professor who, with a divorce and a lonely existence, is burdened by a level of intelligence that makes life in the future seem miserable. And what makes her different, and also worth singling out, is that she's not only Beth's longest phone call, but also her most challenging. Beth cannot give this person simple answers, throw out the number to some group or other website or whatever. She has to be fully engaged, ready to reveal pieces of herself and potentially know the wrong thing or delivering a cliche could be the last straw that breaks the camel's back and ultimately leads this woman to committing suicide, potentially over the phone. But let it be clear, it isn't the potential of suicide that makes Laura notable, but her thoughts on life and the world. Yes, she is deeply pessimistic, but it's through her that Beth is forced to reconcile who she was with who she wants to be and dig into the feelings she may have long suppressed in order to reach this person on a genuine level. And, of course, use her own story to give Laura some sort of hope. And I know that kind of may seem like a bit of word salad, but when you get to watch the film that I don't think has a release date yet, the phone call just, for me, had a bit of a profound effect. And that's with, by the way, you only seeing Tessa Thompson throughout the whole movie and everybody else just being a voice. And Tessa Thompson just walking around, but we'll get to that in a moment. So, regular old highlights. The first one has to be the diversity of the phone calls. From having someone who's clearly an incel to a veteran, Beth's phone calls are all over the place. And this helps immensely over the runtime of about an hour and 36 minutes, for you never know what she may get next. You may get someone with a mental illness who's having an episode, who also has no desire to talk to a doctor. Then there's a homeless girl who potentially has an abusive boyfriend, and each new call is somebody completely new. You can't easily connect to a different person, and it just keeps things interesting. And lastly, as we was alluding to before, how Tessa Thompson keeps you engaged is especially something worth note, because up until Laura's phone call, which is one of the last ones, we don't really learn much about Beth. She is just a soundboard for most of the movie, and as the medium, what I really appreciate about Thompson is she guides you and kind of controls your reactions. Her giving people grace, the questions that are asked, and how she shifts your perception of each caller keeps you from outright damning them, even when you can tell they feel guilty about something they did. And granted, for some, believe me, it is notably difficult to not damn them as soon as they reveal part of the reason they called. Yet, through Thompson, you see and get the kind of understanding, or at least desire to understand, that most people yearn for. And I would even add, one of the things that I think is especially interesting is that Thompson is the only one we physically see. And she isn't necessarily traveling all over the place to do this job. She's in her house. She sometimes may go from room to room, may sit down and draw to kind of help her focus on what the person's saying, maybe visualize what they're going through, if not them. And as she does all this, you never really feel bored of her and just kind of treat this like an audiobook. You still are very much looking at the screen, kind of wondering, is she going to react like you do? Is this going to be the person that really is the straw that breaks the camel's back? Or is she going to be able to remember her training, relate to these people or even sympathize with them. And I will admit, this is definitely going to be a different movie than what a lot of people may expect because it feels very much like a play, but it's probably something that, honestly, if they ever did make a play of this and it came to like the tri state area, I would probably go see it. So, overall, when it comes to the listener, Tessa Thompson somehow figures a way to keep a film in which she is a sole actor present, speaking to a series of others as compelling. And while I can't speak to accolades that this may bring, I definitely think it's worthy and deserving of your attention.